All right, guys, let's start. Okay, so today we are doing your chapter 2 of ethics, which is reading number 90 in weather. We have already completed the chapter 1 of ethics, reading number 89, right? Reading number 89 was more about introduction of ethics. Why do we need ethics in a professional body? What is exactly the professional body? What is a vocation? Right, and other basic stuff, right? Now we are going into your code of ethics and your standard of professional conduct. Now, please keep in mind that this is one of the most examinable reading in the entire CFA curriculum. Few questions definitely come from this reading. Okay, so pay attention, right? Not very difficult, but you have to pay attention to small points. Okay, so the first module, right, module 90.1 is about code and standards, right? And basically, if you see the reading, right, it is code of ethics and standards of professional conduct, right? There are, various learning outcomes here, right? Let's start with learning outcome, your learning objective statement, your 90.1, right? Which is about your structure and your enforcement of the professional conduct program. Okay. So as we go deeper, right, when you look at the structure of the CFA Institute professional conduct program, right, please note it down. You must understand the big picture first, right? CFA Institute is not a court, right? It's not a regulator like your SEBI or your SEC, right? It enforces your ethical behavior of its own members and candidates. The enforcement program which your CFA program has is called the Professional Conduct Program, PCP, right? So keep that in mind very, very clearly, right? So the CFA Institute Professional Conduct Program is covered by the CFA Institute's bylaws, right? It's covered by the CFA Institute bylaws. Okay, and the rules of procedures for proceeding related to professional conduct, right? Meaning PCP does not act randomly. It follows your bylaws, your constitutional rule of your CFA Institute. There's a rule of procedure, step-by-step investigation rule. Basically, you're establishing due process, fairness, and consistency. The program is based on your principle of fairness, right? Basically, members must get a chance to explain themselves. There is no arbitrary punishment. There is a confidentiality of the proceedings, right? Fairness and confidentiality. Investigations are not public, protects your reputation until guilt is established, right? So overall, CFA will never publicize an ongoing investigation. That is very important to understand. And CFA Institute has a board of governors who has overall responsibility, meaning the policy oversight is responsibility of board. They don't investigate cases day by day, right? That is very important to understand. Okay. The CFA Institute professional conduct, right? Staff conducts inquiries related to your professional conduct, which is like self-disclosure by your members or candidates on their annual professional conduct statement of involvement in civil litigation or criminal investigation, or that the member or candidate is subject to written complaint. Can be written complaints, can be evidence of misconduct by a member or candidate at the professional staff received through public sources. Your report by the CFA exam proctor for possible violation during the exam, and analysis of exam materials and monitoring of social media by CFA Institute, right? So please understand the professional conduct staff, right? They kind of investigate, and then there's a discipline review committee which kind of enforce and discipline, right? So who enforce the conduct? Please keep in mind it is not the examiner, right? It is your disciplinary review committee, right? Not even board, right? So enforcement is about your enforcement is done by your disciplinary review committee. Disciplinary Review Committee, DRC. Okay, all right. Then the question comes, which we taught here, right? What triggers an investigation, which I told you, right? Self-disclosure, members, candidate disclose involvement in your civil litigation or criminal investigation. CFA expects self-reporting. If you're hiding, that is worst thing than admitting. Then you look at written complaints from clients, from employers, from colleagues. Anyone can complain, not just clients. Keep that in mind. Public information, I told you, media article, broadcast, CFA can act if no complaint is even filed. Very interesting. Exam proctor report, suspected cheating or misconduct during exam. Exam integrity is sacred, very, very important. Monitoring of social media, CFA monitors public content, posting unethical advice on LinkedIn, Twitter, X accounts, right? So what happens after an inquiry begins? That is given here. So once an inquiry has begun, CFA staff may request your written explanation, right? So that's the first step they ask you. Then they might interview also. Remember the candidate, they might interview the complainant also, they might interview the third party also. They might collect your emails, documents, records, report also, right? So three procedures are given, three aspects are given. So CFA exam or CFA staff, right? Do not suspend you during your investigation. So there's no action taken during investigation, right? But they need all the documents and proof before they make a decision. For the possible outcomes, CFA staff may decide that either there is no disciplinary action, that is one case. There can be cautionary letter, which can be private or educational, which is not punitive, right? Which can be disciplinary sanction, right, if violation occurred, right? And if sanction is proposed, right, member candidate can accept or reject, right? So this is another point that you can still file your appeal, right? You may accept or reject. All right. If rejected, it goes to DRC, disciplinary review committee, hearing panel, right? So you may accept or reject, right? If you reject, right, it goes to your DRC, disciplinary review committee, hearing panel, and it's very relevant for exam. They ask you, right? So, right, chooses to reject, matter will be referred to disciplinary review panel. Okay, you have to understand final points. Right? This is ethics, where each line is very important to keep in mind. Okay. What are the possible sanctions? Possible sanction could be public censure, could be suspension membership, could be suspension from CFA exam. Right? Please keep in mind this can come in question. Can they suspend you during your investigation? No, they cannot suspend you during investigation. This can be an exam question also, right? All right. So this is your learning objective statement one. Now we are doing your learning objective statement two, which is 90B. Uh, we are trying to identify the six component of code of ethics and the seven standards for professional conduct, right? So please keep in mind, first we study the code, which is kind of your principles, right? Then we study the standards, right? Which is study the rules, right? So your principles and rules. If you want to study your, what you say, line by line, right? If you want to study, uh, understand it, it's very important, right? First one is act with, it is a must, right? So you look at the six components of code of ethics principles. The candidate or the charter holder must act with your integrity, competence, diligence, respect, and ethical behavior, right? Basically, this applies to your public, your clients, your prospective clients, your employers, employees, colleagues, and other participants in the market. Uh, Core idea is that integrity is not equal to honesty, right? Alone, right? It includes your professional behavior also. Second, place the integrity of the investment professional interest of clients above personal interest. Basically, mantra here is that client always come first, right? Then use reasonable care and exercise independent professional judgment. This basically, uh, the idea here is that don't, right, blindly follow your boss's instructions. Don't just copy paste the recommendations. Apply your mind, apply reasonable care, and exercise independent professional judgment, right? Fourth is practice and encourage others to participate ethically, right? You're responsible for your conduct and you're also responsible for culture you promote. So beware of that. Then promote the integrity and viability of the global capital markets. Basically, idea here is that don't indulge or don't be participant in your insider trading, manipulation. If you come to know, report it, right? That kind of thing. That's how you promote the integrity and viability. Then you next one is maintain and improve your professional competence. It's a continuous learning obligation. This is code, not just your standards, right? Keep that in mind. Code are principles, right? Which I wrote above also. Code are your principles, right? Standards are rules, right? So you should be aware of difference between code and standards, right? Then you have the seven standards of professional conduct. Uh, seven standards. You see the Roman numeral here first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So CFA use Roman numeral in questions, right? So those are your, first of all, seven standards. Seven rules. Okay. Then we go to your 90C, right? 90C we go. This is you are explaining the uh, ethical responsibility required with the code and standards, including the subsection of the standard. If you look at the standard of professional conduct, first one is your professionalism, right? You need to knowledge of the law. You need to follow your local law, right? Your CFA code and standards. If there's a conflict, you follow your stricter rule. Never assist or participate in any kind of violation. Must dissociate if violation kind of continues, right? So very, very important. Uh, Next one is about independence and objectivity. Independence and objectivity means no gifts, no benefits, no compensation that can impair your judgment, right? Could reasonably expected also, that is also bad because perception kind of matters, right? So keep that in mind very, very clearly, right? You have to understand these guys. There are a lot of things here which are given in the for the exam, right? So you not only have to follow your all applicable laws, rules, and regulations of any government, regulatory organization, licensing agency, or professional association. And in the event of conflict, members and candidates must comply with most strict law, right? Keep that in mind. Follow stricter law. Never assist or participate in violation. Must dissociate a violation kind of conduct. And second one, I told you, right? No gifts, no benefits, compensation, no impairment of judgment. Anything where perception also turns bad, that is bad, right? Right. So reasonably could be expected, right? That is not good, not allowed. Third is misrepresentation. Misrepresentation means no false claims, no exaggeration of credential, no plagiarism, all those things, right? You can't remember everything, you have to understand it, guys. Okay. Then there is misconduct. Misconduct means any dishonesty, any fraud, any deceit, even outside work, if it reflects badly on you, you're not allowed, right? These are rules. And then the competence. Competence means only work in areas where you're qualified or get help, get training, act with competence, etc. Okay. So this is your first one, professionalism. Professionalism has five parts: knowledge of law, independence of activity, misrepresentation, conduct, misconduct, and your competence. Now we are getting into second one. Second one is your integrity of capital market. When I talk about integrity of capital market, there are two parts here, right? One is material non-public information. So the idea here is that if the information is material and non-public, Do not trade on it. Do not tip it, right? There is a mosaic theory which will come ahead, right, in the later readings, right? But right now, right, candidates and members who possess material non-public information that could affect the value of an investment must not act or cause others to act on the information. Mosaic theory is coming ahead. There is a little trick here, right? Mosaic theory, but we'll talk about it later. Non-public, do not trade, do not tip if it is material, right? So that's see, if it is only non-public, right, it's okay. But if it is material and non-public, then it becomes a very recipe for disaster, right? But we'll dig deeper here, right? Do not engage in practice that distort prices or artificially inflate your trading volume with the intent to mislead your market participant. Don't do that, right? So no price distortion, no fake volume, no misleading action, right? Nothing, right? Then the next part is duties to clients, right? Which is loyalty, prudence, and care. You have client first, you use reasonable judgment, you have uh, employer always comes second, right? Keep that in mind. You should have fair dealing. Fair dealing means that equal treatment of clients, no preference to one client over other, no cherry picking kind of thing, right? You must deal fairly and objectively with all clients, right? When providing investment analysis and making investment recommendation, taking investment action, or engaging in other professional activities, right? Uh, Again, loyalty prudence must act for the benefit of their clients. Employers come later, right? Then you have suitability. Suitability is again very important in duties to clients. Suitability, when we talk about here, we are talking about advisory clients. You must know client. You must ensure suitability. You must ensure consideration of total portfolio. If you have your any judgment, right? You're making a reasonable inquiry in clients, prospective clients, investment experience, risk and return objective, financial constraint before you make any investment. Recommendation, determine what an investment is suitable to the client's financial situation. Judge the suitability of investment in the context of client's total portfolio, right? That is very, very important. And then next part is you look at the discretionary portfolios, you follow the mandate strictly, right? That is very, very important. Okay, this is very interesting. Basically, when your members and candidates, right, are responsible for managing a portfolio to a specific mandate, strategy, or style, they must make only investment recognition or take only investment actions that are consistent with the stated objectives, right? So follow the mandate very, very clearly, right? This is very important, right? Then you have performance presentation. This also is asked in exam, right? Basically, whenever you present your performance, be fair, be accurate, be complete. There should be no misleading returns. There should be preservation of confidentiality, right? That is very important. Illegal activity, if it's there, which is required by disclosure by law, right? A client, permits disclosure, right? Then we should do it, right? But again, here also you have to be careful that some activities are very serious, right? And that has to be reported. Some activities, right? You have to do due diligence here, right? Must keep information about current former perspective and confidential, right? You should keep everything confidential unless the information concern your illegal activities or a disclosure is mandatory by the law, right? Or client is permitting it, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, so this completes your duties to clients, right? So we had done three, right? Professionalism, integrative capital market, duties to client, right? And you've seen that each has so many subtypes, so remember those, right? Okay. All right, so now we are going into the next one, right? Which is duties to employers, right? So in your duties to employers, please note, right? Uh, your Important point to understand is loyalty. So loyalty basically means that members and candidates must act right for the benefit of their employers and not deprive, right, their employers of the advantage of their skills and abilities, right? Or divulge confidential information otherwise cause harm to the employee. See, all this looks very simple, right? Very simplest, right? But unless you practice question, it doesn't stick in your mind that how questions will be asked in exam, right? So overall loyalty is act for the employer's benefit, don't steal client, don't steal data. Then there is something about your additional compensation arrangement. Whenever member and candidates are doing the job, right? They must not accept gift, benefit, compensation, or consideration that competes with or might reasonably expected to create a conflict of interest with the employer's interest unless they obtain a written consent from the all parties involved, right? Very, very important. Okay, this is tested in exam, guys. Then you have responsibilities of supervisors. Uh, Basically, members and candidates again must make reasonable efforts to ensure that anyone subject to their supervision or authority, right? This is the responsibility of supervisors, right? They must kind of comply with the applicable laws, rules, regulation, code of standard. We must prevent any kind of violation. We must reasonable supervision, your system require, right? So you must have that. And then next one is your investment analysis, recommendation, and actions. Now, when you talk about investment analysis, recommendation, and action, please note that there are two parts here. One is your diligence and reasonable basis. Next is your communication with clients and prospective clients, right? When I talk about diligence and reasonable basis, basically, the idea here is that members and candidates must do proper research, means they should exercise your diligence, exercise their independence, thoroughness in analyzing just investments, making investment recommendation, taking investment actions. Okay. Uh, they must have a reasonable and adequate basis supported by appropriate research and your investigation for any investment analysis, your recommendations, or anything, right? The second part is communication with your clients and prospective clients. Basically, members and candidates must disclose your nature of service, right? Your cost, your investment process, your risk and limitation, and very important thing which is tested in exam is distinguish between fact and opinion, right? This is very testable thing, guys, in exam, very, very testable thing. So all these 5 points are very important, but facts versus opinion is very tricky, very, very tricky in exam. The question will come and it's not easy to get a hang of it, right? If you don't understand this fact versus opinion. Finally, you have record retention, maintain records, support your recommendation, must develop and maintain appropriate record to support their investment analysis, recommendation, action, and other investment related communication with client and prospective clients. Then you look at your conflict of interest, right? Conflict of interest, basically, you avoid or disclose conflicts. Basically, full and fair disclosure. You should have very plain kind of language, prominence in the disclosure, right? So, perception management again must avoid or make full and fair disclosure of all matters that could reasonably be expected, right? Reasonably be expected. This is the key word to impair their independence and objectivity or interfere with respective duties to the clients, prospective clients, and employers. Members and candidates must ensure that such disclosures are prominent, are delivered in plain language, and communicate the relevant information effectively. Then you have priority of transactions, right? Uh, Again, investment transaction for clients and employer must have priority over investment transaction in which a member or candidate is the beneficial owner, right? So clients must have priority over investment transaction, member or client is a beneficial owner, right? So basically, clients trade first, personal trades later. very, very important. Third is your referral fees, right? Which is your disclose any compensation you have received for referrals. Must disclose to the employer, client, prospective clients, right? For the recommendation of product or services. Okay. All right. Next one is your responsibility as a CFA student member or a candidate, right? There is conduct in CFA programs, which is no cheating, no compromising integrity, right? If you look to provide a reference to a CFA Institute designation, no kind of exaggeration, no misleading claims, right? So must not misrepresent or exaggerate the meaning or implication of membership in CFA Institute, holding the CFA designation or candidate in the CFA program, must not engage in any conduct that compromise the reputation or integrity of CFA Institute, right? So that's what we have. Okay. So again, see, when you read ethics in CFA, right, the topic itself is not difficult, right? But you have to understand final points, right? So this topic is very easy, right? I've listed down few things. I have highlighted few things. I have tick marked few things. Please understand codes are principles, standards are rules, right? And if you look at each of your standards, there is professionalism have 5 points, integrity has 2 points, duty to client have 5 points, duty to employer has 3 points, investment analysis, recommendation, and action has your 3 points, and that 3 points, second point has 5 points. Then conflicts of interest has 3 points. Responsibility of CFA Institute member, CFA candidate has 2 points. Right? So, see, in exam, they will not ask you what falls under what. They will check your critical reasoning, right? You have to eliminate the answers, options, and then come to the answer, right? That's what they will be checking. So, beware of that and apply your mind. I read the question carefully. It's a test of language. If you are able to if you are able to understand the language properly, then only will you able to understand, right? Let's do the question, right? In the case of a complaint about a member's professional conduct, CFA Institute Professional Conduct Program staff are least likely, like to what? Review documents and record later complaint. No, they will review documents, right? We studied, they will review, so it's not least likely. Request an interview with the member of the party making the complaint. Yes, complainant, they have told that they can interview the complainant, right? Suspend the member's right to use the CFA designation while an investigation is progress. No, unless you have done the investigation, come out with proper conclusion, you can't suspend, right? Least likely. We read it, right, in the notes, right? Straightforward. Which of the following requirements for members and candidates is one of the six components of code of ethics? We are talking about code of ethics. We are not talking about standards, right? See, maintain and improve their professional competence. No, I don't think this is the code of ethics. You should know what is the difference between code of ethics and your standards, right? If you want, we can go back and see that. Again, this is very vital to have a clear idea. See, code of ethics and professionalism is there. Code of ethics is more about your act with integrity, place the integrity, reasonable care, independent judgment, practice and courage, promote the integrity, maintain and improve their professional competence. Standard is about your, professionalism, integrity, duties to client, duties to employer. So one is, I told initially, one are principles, right? Others are rules, right? So question here, which is asking you about what? Question here is, which are the following requirements of member, one of the six components of code of ethics, right? So they are asking you code of ethics, which are principles, right? So which are the following requirements for members and candidates is one of the six components of the code of ethics. One of the six components of code of ethics, right? So we are asking about which is principles. Now, if you read it, do not act to cause others to act on material non-public information, right? See, material non-public information, if you look at, right, this was part of your, again, integrity. right? See, fact and opinion, that I told you, right? This investment analysis recommendation, this goes away, right? So this come under your investment analysis and recommendations, which is your rules, right? Which is standard, right? Now maintain and improve their professional competence and do not act or what you say cause others to act on material non-public information. What about this? What is happening here? Or maintain and improve their professional experience. Let's look at the options again, right? I'm without, I don't want to give you the answer directly. I want you to think, right? So material non-public information, uh, if you see in the code of ethics, there is nothing called material non-public information, right? There is nothing called material non-public information. So this goes away by elimination, but maintain and improve their professional competence. Maintain and improve their professional competence, right? See, the last thing here. Unfortunately, you have to remember at least the headings of your rules and standards, right? So again, option A is the answer. Tricky, but if you have read it correctly, you can find it. This is again a standard. This is your code. If a member candidate is offered an additional compensation, right? This was again in discussing your standard. By the candidate, which of the 7 standards of professional candidate states the requirement the member of candidate must follow, right? Again, if you are being given additional compensation, right? It is about your clients. No, sorry, it is about your employers, right? Because employers is also paying you. You are getting some extra pay. It should not happen that you are jeopardizing your employer or you are doing the work for the additional compensation from your employer's time, right? It is duties to employers. It is not duties to clients, not conflict of interest. Okay. That is your uh, thing you are doing. Okay. So please understand you have to know the difference between code versus standard. Try to remember at least the headings, right? Force memorization of the 7 standards, at least the headings, the codes, right? Uh, Thereafter, right, when you go deeper, right, understand logics. Don't try to have a rote learning. We are solving questions that will help you understand it more. Okay. All right. Now we are going to tough questions, right? Tough questions which are from the CFA Institute book, right? We'll go, right? So let's try to do that. Which of the following statement best describes an aspect of the professional conduct program, right? See, inquiries are not initiated in response to the information provided by the media. No, they are initiated, right? So this is gone. Investigation result in disciplinary review committee panels for each case. No, not each case. Only when you reject, then you get go there. Investigation may include requesting a written explanation from the member candidate. Yeah. We have read this in our notes. Very, very simple. A current code of ethics principle reads in full, promote the integrity, right? And what is ahead, right? Now, this is tricky because if you are talking about, promoting the integrity, right? Then how do you get it ahead, right? Whether it is you're looking at read in full, right? Promote the integrity and viability of the global capital markets. No, it is longer than that, right? So if you look at the exact wording, it is integrity and viability of the global capital market for the ultimate benefit of society, right? So this is the one. This is the exact wording from your code of ethics. CFA questions often test your verbatim phrasing of that page, right? So that's why I told you, right? So this, right? This page, right? If you, this page have to be verbatim. Okay, so be little uh, strict here, right? Okay, so have the verbatim uh, idea, and now when you go back to your question, right? Uh, see, ethics is one place, right, where precise language matters a lot. So that is why I'm doing. You see, we are teaching it also by book, right? Going word by word, right? If you see the first one, that is kind of incomplete, option A, right? Second one, if you look at it, uh, again, is not correct, which we are looking at, right? Sounds reasonable, but not CFA language. CFA emphasizes your market integrity, social benefit, rule enforcement per se, right? And similar thing I like to highlight in previous question also, that if you look at previous question, right? Uh, option C is correct because once an inquiry starts, professional conduct staff may request a written explanation. This is explicitly stated in your learning objective, right? Written explanation is often the first step before interviews or document collection. And CFA process is investigative, not punitive at the start, right? Uh, option A, when you look at inquiries are not initiated in response to information provided to the media, basically it is wrong because media reports can trigger your inquiry. CFA explicitly monitors the public sources. A lot of students make a mistake here. They assume that only complaints matter, which is incorrect. Now look at option B, investigation result in disciplinary review committee panel for each case. Uh, please understand that disciplinary review committee panels happen only if violation is found, not in the each case, and also if violation found and the member candidate directly proposed sanction, right? Most cases never reach a panel, right? Remember that. Okay. All right. Then we have question number 3, right? Which of the following is correct with regard to the standard of your professional conduct, right? They require supervisors to focus only on the detection and prevention. And this sounds little interesting, right? Why would somebody only focus on prevention and detection, right? See, supervisors must ensure overall compliance, right? So it is not only. Okay, not just a detection and prevention. So this is a classical kind of question of CFA exam. Look at option B. They set ethical conduct requirements for members candidate that have remained unchanged since their creation. No, standards evolve, right? To reflect your changing market conditions, market participants, etc. CFA Institute explicitly updates them, right? So this two goes away. This is correct now. This is the only option. Basically, this is covered under your standard 5B, right? When you look at communication with client, they address the risk and limitation or recommendation being made to client. Members must disclose your risk, your limitations, your uncertainty. Basically, idea here is CFA Institute kind of hates overconfidence and your hidden risk, right? So you must disclose, right? They want transparency more. Okay. Then we go to the next one, which is your which of the following statement best describe an aspect of the standard of professional conduct? Member and candidates are required to do what, right? Now, in this question, right? See, members and candidates are required to ensure a portfolio mandate is suitable for all investors. Again, see, portfolios or mandates are designed for specific, a portfolio are designed for specific mandates, right? Not for all investors, right? So again, a classical thing. CFA does not require universal suitability, right? That's not the objective. It's a very portfolio centric, person centric kind of advice. Okay, then we look at option B. Members candidates are required to promptly disclose changes that might materially affect investment process. Yes, right. Client must be informed of material changes, not surprised later. So client should never learn changes after losses have occurred. So this seems reasonable. Let's look at option C. Uh, have a reasonable and adequate basis for decision about client confidentiality. No, for client confidentiality, there is not reasonable and adequate basis. Uh, Basically, reasonable and adequate basis is for investment analysis, not the client confidentiality, right? So remember that it's a common exam trick. You give the correct idea that we should have reasonable and adequate basis, but you put it for client confidentiality. You should have put it for investment analysis, right? So you have correct idea, wrong standard, right? So wrong answer, right? So tricky. Understand this trick. This part is okay, reasonable and adequate basis, but this is for investment analysis, not the client confidentiality, right? This part is wrong. Okay. Next one is a CFA Institute member candidates violate standard 2A material non-public information by, right? Again, if you look at three options here, conducting price distortion practice, right? Violates material non-public information. See, when you're material non-public information, uh, that is not price distortion, right? Even the price distortion is a bad thing, right? But price distortion comes under market manipulation. Right? Not under your non-public information, right? Then you have option B, inappropriately causing others to act, right? Now, again, this is quite close because you're saying act, you are in your standard of material non-public information, it is said that acting on material non-public information and causing others to act, right? So it is acting and tipping. Both are kind of wrong, right? So this is tipping others to act, right? So this falls under here. We'll keep it. Inadequately maintaining investment record. Again, inadequately maintaining investment record. This comes under your record retention, right? So see this how tricky it is, right? All three are wrong, but we are looking at what falls under a market manipulation information, which is your tipping, right? So this is very tricky. Next one that we talk about. Standard 3C suitability requires member candidates in an advisory relationship with the clients to now place the client's interest before their own interest, right? Now, this looks like tricky statement, right? What we are looking here, right? So, placing the client's interest before their own interest is correct, right? But that comes under your loyalty, prudence, and care, not your suitability in an advisory relationship. Okay. Consider investment in the context of client total portfolio. This makes sense, right? Because your suitability you're looking at whether something is suitable to a client or not, right? So suitability is a portfolio level, not your security level. one risky asset may be fine in a diversified portfolio. Student often kind of miss this nuance, right? So this is correct. Not knowingly make misrepresentation to relating to recommendation, right? Again, this is misrepresentation, not your suitability. So I hope you are getting a flavor now that how questions are asked in exam, right? So answer is B here. Okay. Next one, when we go, is duties to client state that members must, right? What is the members? Right. Document duties to clients. We are talking. Document client financial constraint after an initial investment action. Again, this is okay. First of all, when it is saying document client financial constraint after an initial investment plan, no, this have to be done before. Right? You have to constrain means you have to what is the age, what are the liabilities, asset, what is the plan, uh, what are long-term goals, short-term goals, etc. Right? Then you go into your maintain an equal balance of interest owed to the client and employer, right? See, in CFA parlance or CFA language, right? Client comes first, then employer comes, then self comes, right? So you cannot have equal balance, right? So that also goes away. You're only left with C, right? Which is duty to client states that member candidate must deal fairly and objectively with all clients when engaged in professional activities. Basically applies to your research, applies to recommendation, applies to your trades, right? All those things, right? Research, recommendation, and trades. Okay. All right. Right. Next one is question number 8. Duties to employers states that duties to employers, now we are talking about, state that candidates must not what? Right? Accept any gifts that might compromise their independent objectivity. Now, that is a different one. That doesn't come under your duties to employer. That is your independence and objectivity. So you should know what comes under what also, right? Then your next one is derive or deprive their employer of their skills and abilities as related to their employment. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Next one is accept your compensation, uh, competing with their employer's interests without the written consent of their employer only, right? So now this is very tricky because here we are saying that accept compensation competing with the combined interest without the return right or their employer only. No, you have to take all, right? Consent from all. Okay, so that is also very tricky. Answer is B here, guys. Next one, right? So they're all tricky questions, right? Next one, investment analysis, recommendation, and actions state that members of candidates find an investment suitable for the client before making a recommendation. Uh, See, it is investment suitable for the client before making a recommendation. That is your suitability, right? Okay, that is not your investment analysis, recommendation, action. Then you have make reasonable efforts to ensure that the performance presentation is fair, accurate, and complete. Again, this is performance presentation. Right? It's a words play, right? So if you look at clearly, right, these two are wrong. Distinguish between fact and opinion. I told you in the notes when we were studying that this is very testable, right? Done in exam. That how do you distinguish between fact and opinion? Opinions are not facts. Must clearly label your assumptions covered under your communication, right? So this is right. So in your investment answer recommendation, uh, this is covered under your communication. which is part of your investment analysis and recommendation, right? So which is part of your okay. All right. So this is very tricky, right? So this, like, I want to highlight here before we go ahead, right? That, see, the question is not asking you. Question is asking you that in question they have given you this investment analysis and recommendation action, right? And you should know that in this there are, three things of, one, two, right? The diligence and reasonable basis is one thing. Your communication with client and prospective client, second thing. Your recordination, third thing, right? So you should know that, okay, in my investment analysis and recommendation action, there are three things. And in those three things, inside that, there is a factor of opinion, right? So I hope you're getting the point, right? So you don't not only have to remember 7 standards, you have to understand that, okay, there is one standard which has, sub things, and that thing also has sub parts, right? So they will ask you this. You should be able to map it. That this is mapping, right? Your mapping should be correct, right? That this particular thing maps to this, and this maps to this, right? So the mapping should be clear. Okay, map, right? That's why it's tricky here, right? And that's why ethics becomes so difficult to solve, right? Unless you remember things fair and square, you cannot solve it, right? So you see, if I have to, again, maybe I'm repeating again, but the idea is that you must understand that if it is professionalism, that has 5 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they might ask you something in between also, right? That, okay, this might have subparts also, right? Right. So they might ask you something here. So you should know that, oh, this maps to knowledge of law, right? This maps to this part, knowledge of law, and the knowledge of law maps to your professionalism. So your mapping techniques, right? Your idea of understanding one thing related with other thing and then related with third thing, that is very, very important. Okay. So beware of that, right? Very, very important from the exam perspective. Fine. So remember that, and then how tricky it becomes, because you have 7 thing which I wrote here. 7 standards. 7 standard will have another 3-4 categories. So then 4 categories will have another 3-4 parts, right? So it becomes a mesh, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And 7 standards are these, and each standard has your 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And that again has your 1 or 2, right? So you have to have that much of depth, right, for each thing, right? Right. So that much depth should be available. Okay. So keep that in mind very, very clearly. Fine. All right. So this is done. Next one is so again, last question for this topic is responsibilities of a CFA Institute member or CFA candidate explicitly states a requirement regarding what? You have a requirement regarding loyalty, you have a requirement regarding responsibility of supervisors, right? So reference to the CFA program. See, responsibility as a CFA Institute member, right? They don't explicitly states about loyalty. Loyalty is covered in your standard 3 and standard 4, right? Then responsibility of supervisor, this is also covered in standard 4, right? Reference to the CFA program, yes, this is where it is responsibility of CFA Institute members, where they're talking about that, okay, how will you use CFA designation? Usage of right reference to CFA Institute program representation, right? Very testable in exam. It's very, very testable. Answer is C, right? Tricky and testable, right? So overall, I don't think this topic is so difficult, right? But there's a lot of memory you have to apply here, right? So uh, you need to identify the standard first, then evaluate the behavior, then wrong answers will always have, you know, can cite the wrong standard. First of all, that is very common. Then watch out for words like your only, your always, your incomplete kind of answers. Right idea, but wrong section. That is very tricky, right? So keep that in mind, right? So I'll give you some hacks here, right, which will help you, right? So hacks for this chapter is that watch out for your what you say words such as only, always, right? Wrong answers, citing wrong standard, right? Incomplete answer, and then idea is right, but wrong section or standard, right? These are hacks, right? Remember that. Overall, you need to read it carefully to understand it. Once you read it, then only you will be able to solve question. And I will also urge that focus more on solving questions, right? See, reading will give you an idea, right? But ultimate learning will happen only when you solve a lot of questions, right? And once you practice a lot of questions, you will get an idea what kind of questions CFA Institute asks and why, right? You have to sit with the question, understand, analyze each option. It's not about finding the right option. It is about understanding that why other options are wrong, right? Once you have a clear idea, okay, why other options are wrong and why this option is correct, right? You understand each option, right? What is wrong in that each option. Then the learning is happening, right? So be objective in nature, be very methodical, right? Focus on the process of elimination, right? Rather than searching for the right answer, right? If you're doing that, you'll totally fine, right? That's it from my side, guys. That's it for this chapter. To see you in the next chapter, try to understand, try to focus, and once we have done that, uh, the difficulty level of ethics will now keep on increasing. In fact, next chapter is very, very difficult. The third chapter, right? So that is very long and very difficult, and there are a lot of examples, right? Where you have to apply your learnings, thoughts, and I urge everyone to become good in this topic because this is something which will not leave you till your CFA level 3, right? Ethics is the only topic which is in CFA level 2 also and CFA level 3 also, right? So if you become master of it in the first level itself, right? Second level difficulty will increase, third level difficulty will increase more, right? But at least once you have the basics in control, right? Other things will be very easy to understand. Okay. All right, guys, we'll stop here and I'll see you in next class, right? Next lecture. Okay, thank you.